The master category time every week is when we get to talk about the tokens we drew the week before, which give us our categories. We pick our topics based on those categories. That's how it works. Patrick, why don't you kick us off?
Sure, absolutely. So it is the end of the year. And at every end of the year, you see recaps and you see predictions. That's the way it works. And one of the things I love to not just think about, but see what other people are predicting or looking forward to is design predictions for the next year. So I personally am a web developer, and so those trends. There's two pieces. One, it lets me know maybe what I should be working on, and two, it helps me know maybe what I can expect. If my job's getting harder or easier or those type of things. So 99 Designs has released their graphic design trends for 2018, and I just want to run through these real quick and kind of see what we think. Do we think that these are maybe in line with what's going to happen, or maybe make some predictions of our own? So after going through these, let me say this. A lot of the trends listed, I think, plant firmly with kind of where we are now. And so I personally just overall, I'm not sure that this is going to be a long-lived list. I don't necessarily think they're going to be wrong, but I think when we're sitting in October and November of next year, I think we're going to be beyond most of these. But let's just go ahead and jump in. So the first trend that they list is responsive logo. So the idea of a responsive logo is that as you move through, different screen sizes or print sizes or whatever, that you don't just shrink the logo, you actually change the logo. So maybe you have a horizontal layout and then you have a vertical layout. Maybe you abbreviate words. Maybe you go all the way down to just a mark and you cut the words out completely. But the idea is that you may have 5 or 6 different logos. That way, again, depending on the size of the product, print, digital, it fits but still communicates the message. Thoughts on that?
I hope that happens. I mean, I think that's... It just adds a layer of like a dynamic visual, function to the site. I think that's great.
For print material too, I think the thing is it should be happening. It's what you should be doing. One thing I hate is when people have these.
So you're not talking about just for websites. You're saying design in general.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying.
That's already what we've employed, at least for the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, we have when all is said and done, about 6 different versions of our logo that we use for different functions. And so I'm glad to see that more people are going to do that, because a lot of times what you'll see is someone just takes their logo and we only have 100 pixels to demonstrate this logo, or we only have a half an inch. Well, we're going to use our same logo, but then everything gets so stinking tiny because they just scale it.
Right.
So it's something you should be doing. To call it a trend, I mean,
I hope that what they mean by trend is that more people are going to start doing it. Okay. Not necessarily that it's going to come and go, but just that more people are going to adopt it. That's what I'm hoping. Because I don't think that's a trend. I think that's more about being an adaptive designer or developer.
Yeah, you should do it. The next thing on the list is gradients. Now, we've seen gradients all over the place, and certainly about everything we touch uses gradients.
Jared Mariyama invented them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Jay Ratner. Here's the thing. I don't know that gradients are going to be super long-lived. I mean, I agree that everything has a gradient right now, but I think that's more of a 2017 trend than a 2018 trend, and I don't think they're going to have a super long life. Concur, disagree?
I don't know. I think gradients have always been there. And so I think we will see. I think 2018 we will still see them. We might start to see them shift away mid to late 2018, but I think the trend came on about halfway through 2017. And so it's still got some life to it. Cause like if you look at even some of the conferences for 2018 that have released all of their stuff, there's heavy use of gradient in those conference material, and those won't even happen until mid-year to late year next year.
What are your thoughts on? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to throw this in here. I am not the guy for this. As Patrick says, he's not the toy or the game guy. I am not the art or design guy. Like, you both know that world way more than I do. But could the gradients move from what I see, it's like color gradients, one color to another color. It could be just, if it shifts, it could be just value gradient instead of color to color, which is, it's essentially the same because it's going white and black to another color.
Right.
But that could be more of what we see back to like traditional gradient, not just color shift.
I'll say this. I can see so there's a couple things at play. I'm not going to run through all 10 of these, but there's a couple things I want to talk about specifically. So they mentioned duotones on their list. They also mention a couple other lists have talked about bold color. Bold color was a big thing this year, using like purples and pinks and like almost like primary like blues and things like that. So what you're seeing is a lot of these bold color gradients.
Yeah.
So I could see the bold color phasing out a little bit or lessening, even if the gradient doesn't. I can't imagine the duotones are going to be long-lived. So then another thing they mention is depth, but they still talk about a semi-flat design. So this is probably the thing that
I love this.
I'm gonna combine a couple of these real quick because they also talk about custom graphic art and authentic photography. So I'm going to combine all these and kind of talk about these for a second. I think that this very minimalistic flat design, we're going to start seeing a lot less of that. That was huge this year. Last year it was really ramping up. This year was a big thing. I think we are going to now shadows are coming back. We are going to start seeing more illustration involved. I think we're going to start seeing more composition with like illustrated piece mixed with like real like photograph.
It's going to get more editorial. It's going to get more traditional advertising. Yeah, absolutely.
Which I'm super glad for. So I think that anything that deals with kind of the depth or the more complex design, moving away from the flat minimalistic, that's what I feel is going to happen, and those are things I'm excited for. Now it talks. They still list vintage as being on their list, and they also talk about retro patterns. So, what do you guys think about the idea of the retro patterns and vintage?
As far as what?
For the next year, do you think we're going to see that continue? Do we think we're going to see more of that? What do you think is going to happen to it?
I need to see. I'm actually right now looking at this article. I'm trying to see what they mean by that because everybody seemingly feels like they mean something different when they say vintage.
So they call it highly detailed vintage,
right?
So it's a couple different things. Some of it is that really dense, almost like line work that you could imagine being like gold foiled that has like little like trills and stuff in it.
Yeah, it's like. Oh my gosh! I knew it until you. It's not pointillism, but it's got that etched look to it, and I can't remember the name of it right now. Oh my gosh, I'm blinking.
I don't know the name. I've seen Scott Biersack put out a lot of work like that. So that's one of the styles. Again, they also talk about patterns, and so I also saw some like kind of floral pieces.
Yeah, it looks like a whole bunch of couches at your grandma's house.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It looks like someone went to Goodwill, bought all of the furniture they have there, and then stuck some really clean type on top of it.
Right.
I don't know about the design world. In the development world, and there is obviously design attached to it, but I'm thinking in the web world, I should say, not the graphic design world. I just don't know that is going to be a majority by any means, and I don't know that we're necessarily going to see a ton of it. I think there's a few people that is what they're leaning into. But I think the majority, there's a final semi-flat.
There's a final image on that point.
Yeah,
it's highly yellow and white. I think that is how you're going to see that interpreted in the web development world.
Sure.
Fair.
We've already seen that. It's a minimal version of that, like a scaled back version with a high design.
Mm-hmm. So, and the last piece that I do want to say, it needs to happen.
And this link will be in the show notes. So
this link will be in the show notes. Absolutely. So
go along with us as we're doing this. Yeah. So that way you know what we're talking
about. The last thing I'll mention, because it's going to happen, it needs to happen. Your work's not going to be finished unless you do it. The last thing they mention is what's actually in the middle of the list, but is animation. Animation is huge. Any site, anything that is interactive, that is digital. that does not have animation will be unfinished. That's just what it is. So
At least it won't feel. You will lose influence in your space.
yeah. Well, and the thing is, because I don't remember if it's on this list or not. I don't think it's on this list. But one thing people talk about, they talked a lot about it last year. I don't think it fully came to fruition, so they're expecting it next year, which is this computer. How do I say this? It's like AI generated design. This idea that I can plug some parameters in and it'll spit out a logo, or it'll spit out a site, or, think of like grid.io, or I know Nutella did this thing where they generated like 50 patterns they use for their bottles, but they're all generated using AI, like that kind of stuff. I think we're going to see more of to an extent, but what that means is that animation becomes a separator, because there are going to be all these tools where you can go make a site very quickly. You can go put together this like design package very easy, or this logo very easy, whatever.
Is this our opportunity to tell everybody that our site for 2018 is going to be built on Wix?
It's going to be built on, it's all Flash for 2018. But that being said, animation then becomes the separator. That becomes that detail, that intentionality, that next level that does separate you from, again, all of these kind of like really beautiful looking stock built generated sites. And so if you want to charge a premium price, that's where you're going to have to move. You're going to have to incorporate more illustration. You're going to have to incorporate like media that you've captured, not a bunch of B-roll. It has to be very specific personal media, and you're going to have to incorporate animation. Those are the ways that you'll be able to charge a premium price for a product while competing with a bunch of amazing looking, easy to set up, computer generated products.
Sure.
So that's, I think because of that, we will see a lot of those things moving next year. So anyway, I think this list is, again, I think the list is safe is what I'll say. I don't think they've made any predictions that maybe the average person couldn't have come up with, or at least the average designer. These are all really, really safe bets that we will see more of these things.
Yeah.
I would be interested to hear from people, what's the kind of off the wall thing that you think is going to make a return? What's the thing that no one is anticipating, but you're just,
You know what I think it's going to be?
2018 is the year.
I think it's going to be that people are going to use placeholder lorem ipsum as their final web development, like as their final content.
I've already been doing that for years on accident.
That's the thing that I think that's what's going to set you apart, honestly.
Yeah, I'm going to think a bit longer because I think you're wrong. But I do know there are some. I think that we're going to start seeing rejection, like a lot more rejection of digital best practices and norms. I think that it's going to hit a point.
I think we're already trending that way. Yeah.
Yeah, where
Absolutely.
like we've been talking about best practices, and I think we're hitting a point where, and there's like small indicators, like you have something like Snapchat that's like a horrible interface and it's incredibly loved and people just figure it out. I think we're going to see a lot more rebellion and a lot more people saying, I'm just going to do something because it feels good to me and I don't care if it's what I should be doing, quote unquote. I don't know how that actually manifests itself, but I think we are going to see a rejection of best practices over the next year.
Yep.
So,
okay. Who you tossing it to?
Luke.
Me.
Have at it.
All right, I had TV and film, and I'm going to talk about something that you knew about and then maybe just slid under the radar, but it's here now. It's Bright. So it's the original movie produced by Netflix starring Will Smith. It's the story of two cops in this world where elves and dwarves and orcs and humans all live. It's like post the magic of like that fantasy land where all of those things live that we know from fairy tales and storybooks and Dungeons and Dragons and whatever. Like it's post that. And so Joel Edgerton and Will Smith play two cops, they're partners, Ward and Jacoby. And the movie is essentially throwing like End of Watch or Training Day and mix it with Suicide Squad and some fantasy tropes that we know. And I'll say this. I was really, really excited for this movie because I like fantasy, and I think David Ayers, the director, does cop drama well. He wrote Training Day. He directed End of Watch. He was director of Suicide Squad. Like, the dude, this is his wheelhouse, you know? This is what he does. And so I was like, you know what? Cool. I'll see this. Harsh Times, Sabotage, like all of these cop movies from the last couple of years that we've seen, they've been him. It looked great. It's gorgeous. They spent a ton of money on production because the movie is good. The effects are great. That's kind of where it stops. So the movie has like a 31% on Rotten Tomatoes, an audience score of 90%, which is actually surprising to me. And then a 7.9 on Metacritic.
Because you feel like it should be higher?
No, I thought it would be lower based on the critic scores. So the audience score is higher than I thought it would be. Rach and I watched this last night, and it's painful how obvious this story is. Like, we both picked up the main like plot twist like 20 minutes into the film. And
that's about where I stopped.
Yeah,
because I had to.
You'll get there.
So, okay.
It's a fun watch. Like, it's a cool taking of the buddy cop or the cop drama story. It's a cool like fantasy twist, and it's a cool idea. That's kind of where it stops. Will Smith is great in it. Joel Edgerton is great in it. There's the acting is good. That's kind of it. The story is just bad. It's like got everything going for it as far as like the landscape. It's LA, it's cop drama, it's shot well, the sound is good, the effects are great, the acting is okay. The story is just so obvious. And that's what I hated. There's their take on gangs. So in the movie, orcs are seen as the lowest kind of race, but you still have like the Latino gangs, but then also these orc gangs, and it just kind of doesn't make sense. I don't understand how it fits, and like it was just kind of like some of that stuff was thrown in, but not really fully like fit in, if that makes sense. I think you should watch it because one, it's Netflix, like big budget.
It's their
movie.
first blockbuster.
Yeah, it's their first blockbuster. So it's worth checking it out and saying, if this is the level that we have to expect from them, I'm excited. I think it was just a misstep on the story. I think it was good because it'll draw people to see it because it's a cool idea, but it was just not quite good enough. It's disappointing because I liked everybody involved in it. But that's it. So okay. I say see it, but it's not great.
Okay.
Okay.
Am I going to take it?
Yeah, do it.
You going to hand it to me? Okay, so I had toys and games. I'm going to quickly talk about a toy series and then a game. We've talked about it on the show, I think, before, that the Disney Afternoon series, like back from the 90s, has made a triumphant return. Yeah. Funko has put out an action figure line. Well, they also did a mystery minis line as well. Darkwing Duck has not been released, I don't think, yet in the action figure line, because I haven't seen him yet. But I'm a huge fan of Darkwing Duck. If you know me, you know that Rye Bread gave me a felt Darkwing Duck that he did, which is amazing. Anyway, huge fan of Darkwing Duck. Well, I got some mystery minis from Funko, and I didn't get Darkwing, and I was annoyed by it. And Jared Mariyama, I think, got like 50 of them. And so I kept saying like, save one for me, save one for me. Well, yesterday I was finishing up some shopping, and they had restocked the mystery minis. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna buy 2 boxes and be done with it. And I bought it, and the first one I opened up was Darkwing.
Hey,
And the sculpt is great. Like it's great. And then the second one I got,
that's good.
Launchpad.
Nice.
Nice.
If you're a Darkwing Duck fan, those are the 2 you want, right? I mean, and then so I get them, and then literally within, an hour of getting them, I got a call from my local comic book shop. I had ordered the Darkwing pop vinyl because he's really hard to find. And they called me and said, hey, your pop vinyl's in. You can come pick them up whenever.
Oh,
so
cool.
I now have Darkwing, the pop vinyl, and Launchpad pop vinyl, and then I have the mystery figs. And hopefully in the next month or so, we'll have the action figure as well. So anyway, I'm really a big fan of them. If you're a fan of, like, the sculpts are great, the painting is great. They're super cheap. They're mini. I mean, they're mystery. So they're blind bag. So you've got that, but they have a bunch of really fun ones. So I would say pull the trigger on a couple of them, especially if you're a kid from the '90s who grew up with the Disney afternoon lineup. You're not going to get a better version of this, at least anytime in the near future.
Sure.
So pick them up, and they're a great little addition to the shelf. All right. For my category, I backed this game on Kickstarter a long time ago, and last week it came in. Unimo. So look at it. Look at the box in all of its glory. Unimo is a card game that is intended for 2 to 5 players, ages 8 and up. It takes about 20 minutes to play. It's a very quick game to play. And the game functions. I got to do a play test of it. They sent me a play test version that wasn't quite finished, so I got to play it. I haven't played this version yet. That's why it's still in the plastic. But the game plays a little bit like Ghost and and Uno.
Yeah.
So you're kind of building up. You have to what you play is based off of the card that was played previously. You have to get through and essentially make it so that the other person can't play any of their monsters. The monsters start at a certain... So Unimo stands for Universe of Monsters. It's brought to you
that rolls
by...
off the tongue. That is a great way of saying that.
It's true.
That's good.
And it's brought to you by Mo Games. It's a Swedish game company. It's a studio in collaboration with Max Grek, who is the artist and illustrator for the game. But he also did Quartz.
Yes.
So so Quartz, you've heard us talk on the show if you've listened for any amount of time. The artwork in Quartz is beautiful. It's stunning. It's stylized and so cool. This art is the exact same style of art.
Quartz is, side note, that is probably my favorite casual game.
Yeah.
Like, don't want to have to think too hard, have some friends coming over, break out Quartz.
And most of it's because the gameplay is great, but then on top of that, it's beautiful, right?
Unimo, nice pen.
So I didn't get the pin. I know. I need to message them and say, hey, I didn't get my pin. But anyway, the game is beautiful. Yeah, I got my card. And if you were a backer, he signed a card and put it in there. So the artwork is beautiful. The game is can you buy it now? I think you can probably buy it off of unimogame.com.
Or at least pre-order it.
It's really small. It's compact. If you're watching this, you see, the box is very small. It fits on your shelf easily. It's a quick play. Takes a little bit of time to learn, but not terribly long to learn, especially if you've played some other games with similar mechanic. Mm-hmm. But the art alone, it's worth it. They're beautiful. Just look at the characters on here. It's
really fun design.
Yeah, it's great. So anyway, go pick it up. We might do it would maybe be worth doing a play test video of this potentially. Yeah. It's still new enough that people would want to see how this game functions. So it's not on the store shelves yet. So maybe now is a good time to do a play test video of it. So anyway, maybe be on the lookout for that in the next couple weeks. Luke and I both have it, so I imagine one of us can
fly me out so we can play it.
Yeah. So there we go. We have to wait till next Christmas though.
Okay.
Wait, you're coming up. Patrick, let's play together.
I am coming up. That's true.
Perfect. Well, that's it for me, which I think means that's it for the episode, right?
Yeah.
Holy cow. We ran through that one in no time at all. It was like just an hour and a half.
It's quick.
But man, this was a fun episode. It's almost like we haven't seen each other in days. So we had to catch up. Find us on mofonepodcast.com where you can find show notes and links to all the stuff as well as an archive. Be on the lookout for Thursday's episode. We have another guest. If you're a toy guy or toy girl, you're going to love this guest. They're super talented. And what else? Am I missing things? I feel like I'm missing everything.
Patreon or Slack.
Good. Yep,
or
do that. Go to
Apple
patreon.com/MF1podcast. We're everywhere. Just search MF1 Podcast. If you want to throw a couple bucks in the old proverbial bucket, go to patreon.com/MF1 Podcast and you can become a patron. There's some stuff from this episode you will see if you are a patron. Some blooper stuff that, yeah, that's all. And subscribe, like, share all the videos, all of the things, all the time. 2018 is just around the corner, and man, we would love for this year to double what we did this year.
Yeah.
And you are a huge part of that. And you are a huge part of why the show has been successful thus far. And thank you for that. But let's see what happens in 2018. That's up to you guys. We have some fun stuff planned for 2018 too.
Yeah, we do. Oh my gosh.
So, I think we're going to leave it at that for now, though. I'm Andrew.
I'm Patrick.
And I'm Luke.
For the last time of 2018, peace out.
Bye.
Hold on to butts.